At my birthday party, my brother's fiancée had specially ordered a Ferrari for me. Meanwhile, his softboi girlfriend timidly presented a grimy bracelet, mumbling, "I made this myself. I hope you like it." After I gave her a dismissive glance, she retreated behind my brother with teary eyes. My brother coldly reprimanded me. "Do you know how much effort Linda put into making this bracelet? She stayed up all night." Then he turned to mock his own fiancée for her lack of effort, accusing her of only knowing how to throw money around. That evening, I made a bold announcement to everyone at the party. The family doesn't need dead weight. I'll be taking over the family business and my sister-in-law. Later that night, I knocked on my sister-in-law's door. "Open up, sis-in-law. It's really me, Aaron." Ding. Story Shots reminds you to click the subscribe button at the bottom right corner to read the full novel. At the birthday party, my brother's fiancée gifted me a custom Ferrari, drawing envious glances from everyone. People around us joked about how well my sister-in-law-to-be treated me, urging me to try out the new car. However, as I sat in the driver's seat, I unexpectedly awakened a flood of memories. In these memories, I was the passionate but unrequited second male lead in a novel. I had grown up in the shadow of my half-brother, Henry, known only as a spoiled rich kid. Yet, I fell in love at first sight with my brother's girlfriend, loving her humbly and deeply. In the end, I met my demise in a foreign country for the sake of the female lead. By the time I finished processing these memories, I was drenched in sweat without realizing it. Christy, sitting in the passenger seat, turned to look at me with concern. "Are you feeling all right?" I wiped the sweat from my brow and looked at the cheerful and bright Christy before me, finding it impossible to associate her with the vicious female antagonist from the book. As my brother's fiancée, Christy wasn't the female lead. On the contrary, in the book, my brother Henry insisted on being with the female lead, Linda Rogers, and broke off his engagement with Christy. Christy, harboring resentment towards Linda, tried every means to frame and humiliate her, ultimately being tortured to death by the main couple. All of this seemed too absurd to be true, yet the memories felt vivid and real. "I'm fine." With so many people in the garden urging me on, I pushed aside my thoughts and skillfully started the car. The engine roared as I pressed the accelerator, eliciting exclamations from the crowd. As everyone excitedly discussed the specifications of this custom Medina yellow model, a cool and indifferent voice came from the crowd. "Just a vulgar toy." My brother Henry, looking as handsome as ever, emerged from the crowd. People parted to either side, making way for him. Behind him followed a young woman. She had an innocent look, wearing a simple t-shirt and jeans, standing out among the well-dressed party guests. She timidly surveyed the crowd, biting her lip nervously, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her shirt. Watching this scene, my right eye began to twitch uncontrollably, my emotions churning inside. Everything matched up with the memories I had just recovered. Seeing all eyes on the girl, Henry pulled her close and calmly introduced her. "My girlfriend, Linda Rogers." Henry's words fell like a stone into still water, sending ripples of shock through the crowd. The guests at the party began to whisper among themselves, with Christy's name being mentioned repeatedly. Christy, standing there looking at Henry and Linda, turned pale. I couldn't help but frown as I spoke. "Brother, what nonsense are you talking about? You're already engaged to Christy." Henry ignored my words. "I'm here today to break off the engagement with Christy. Linda is your sister-in-law now." The scene before me overlapped with memories from the past. My body suddenly felt as if it had plunged into an icy cavern. Feeling the stares of so many people, Linda nervously fidgeted with the hem of her shirt. Her pure white t-shirt became wrinkled from her constant twisting. She cautiously glanced at me, then timidly stepped forward, extending her hand. Biting her lip, she said, "I made this myself. I hope you like it." Only then did I notice the grass bracelet in her hand, still with bits of soil clinging to it, looking rather dirty. I gave it a quick glance. Linda bit her lip harder, her eyes instantly welling up with tears. She retreated to Henry's side, still holding the birthday gift. Outside the banquet hall stood many of Newcastle's elite. Linda, seemingly oblivious to their presence, clung to Henry's sleeve and whimpered softly. It must be my fault that his brother doesn't want to accept my birthday gift. She glanced at the car Christy had given as a gift and added, biting her lower lip as if unintentionally, "After all, I could never afford such an expensive car." This comment seemed to hit a nerve with Henry. He snorted coldly and began to berate me. "Aaron, don't be so cruel. Do you know how long it took Linda to make this bracelet? All night." Then, turning his head, he started criticizing Christy. "Without the money to give this car meaning, it's nothing but a pile of scrap metal. The thought behind a gift is what matters. Christy, you only know how to throw money at gifts. You put no real thought into it." Initially, I wasn't angry when Henry scolded me, but when he publicly berated Christy, an inexplicable rage surged through me. If it's just scrap metal, why don't you ride grass to work tomorrow instead of driving a car? Faced with my retort, Henry was momentarily speechless. Not daring to take his anger out on me, he tried to redirect his ire towards Christy again. I leisurely got out of the car and stood in front of Henry, shielding Christy behind me. I was half a head taller than Henry, and now I looked down at him with a displeased expression. "Does grandfather know that besides your fiancée, you also have a girlfriend?" The so-called old man was none other than the father of Henry and me. He was the true power behind the Johnson family. I watched Linda Rogers with a mocking gaze. Under the crowd's scrutiny, she stood frozen like a deer in headlights, with nowhere to escape. Like a chick seeking protection from a mother hen, Linda clung tightly to Henry's arm, almost pressing herself against his back. The commotion in the front yard finally caught the attention of the elders in the banquet hall. As the old man and Mr. Jenkins stepped out, they witnessed this scene. Both their faces darkened simultaneously. The old man frowned and said sternly, "Henry, today is Aaron's birthday. Don't cause trouble. Ask your friend to leave." Just like that, girlfriend became friend. One word less and her status changed instantly. Linda's eyes welled up with tears. "Henry, I should go." She turned to leave but was pulled into Henry's embrace. "No, today I want to tell everyone that you're the only one I love." Henry turned to kneel before the old man. "Dad, I don't love Christy at all. I only love Linda. I came today to break off the engagement with Christy." The old man's face turned a mottled red and white. Whispers and murmurs erupted from the surrounding crowd. Henry's self-indulgent speech only made me laugh inwardly. When the old man had arranged this marriage in the past, Henry had never objected. He often pawned off Christy's invitations to me. Even if he truly didn't want to marry Christy, he could have found a private moment to discuss it, rather than humiliating her so publicly. The crowd's chatter was incessant. Voices mocking Christy reached my ears clearly. "Look at the Jenkins daughter now. So eager to please the Johnson family. Gifting young Henry such an expensive car, only to be dumped. If I were her, I wouldn't be able to show my face in public." Christy's arms trembled slightly with anger, her eyes reddening. I felt an inexplicable tightness in my chest. Years ago, my mother had married into the Johnson family through a business arrangement. Yet while still pregnant with me, she watched her husband bring home another woman's baby boy. Out of guilt for Henry's mother dying in childbirth, the old man showered Henry with affection. After my mother passed away, Henry transformed from an illegitimate child into the rightful young master of the Johnson family. Linda Rogers, still immersed in Henry Johnson's bold public announcement, suddenly found the courage to fight for love. She ran to Christy Jenkins, crying, and turned her accusations towards her. "Miss Jenkins, I know you're Henry's fiancée, but Henry and I are truly in love. Please, I beg you, let a couple in love be together." She wept, her face streaked with tears, causing Henry to feel a pang of sympathy. "Linda, you're the woman I've chosen. You don't need to beg her." He turned to look at Christy. "I've already said it, I don't love you at all. How long are you going to keep clinging to me?" Christy took 2 steps forward, causing Linda to fearfully hide behind Henry. Henry watched her approach, one hand protectively shielding Linda, his expression wary. "What are you planning to do to Linda?" But to everyone's surprise, Christy slapped Henry hard across the face. Her silver-white evening gown swayed with the motion, and Christy's ring-adorned hand left a mark on Henry's face. She swiftly removed the wedding ring from her finger and threw it on the ground. "Henry, it's not you ending the engagement. It's me ending it with you." Christy had dressed up elaborately today for my birthday party. Wearing high heels, she was now almost as tall as Henry, her presence equally commanding. With this bold statement finished, Christy swept her gaze across the crowd, her eyes sharp. The previously mocking and jeering voices in the crowd suddenly fell silent, everyone quiet as mice. They could only watch as Christy walked away, her high heels clicking, her figure swaying gracefully. The Jenkins family elders also left, their faces dark with anger. "Since this is how it is, our Jenkins family and your Johnson family should cease all contact from now on." The drama seemed to end there. My birthday party was completely ruined. Henry, having been slapped, wasn't satisfied. He actually tried to go after Christy to hit her back, but I subtly blocked him. After so much careful planning, the marriage arranged for Henry was now off. The Johnson family had lost so much face today. The old man was shaking with anger, his face turning purple as he fainted. People cried out in shock, calling for an ambulance. Henry rushed over to his father, while I walked against the flow of people towards the stage in the ballroom. My fate should be in my own hands, not dictated by the plot of some novel. In the midst of this chaotic party, I took the microphone and tested it. In an instant, my voice filled the vast, spacious ballroom. "Thank you all for coming to my birthday party. At this moment, I'd like to announce something." The previously chaotic crowd calmed down, all eyes turning to me in unison. Across the crowd, Henry was now supporting the old man, his expression bewildered. The ambulance arrived quickly. Surrounded by the sound of sirens, I made my high-profile announcement in front of everyone. "The family doesn't need a waste. I will inherit the family business and my sister-in-law." After saying this, I smiled and met Henry's gaze, silently mouthing the word "fool." Henry's eyes bulged with rage as he tried to come forward, but he was blocked by the crowd and could only fume helplessly where he stood. At this moment, under everyone's attention, my smile grew even wider. The male lead of the novel, but in my world, I am the protagonist. On the racetrack, I pushed my speed to the limit, feeling the adrenaline rush through my veins. As I completed a lap, Janie Andrews and Robert Williams arrived fashionably late. Janie had traded her former short hair for long, straight locks, a change I found quite jarring. She claimed it was a basic requirement for female celebrities. I suddenly remembered her long-standing crush on a certain actress, all because someone once said they liked gentle and sincere people. She finally mustered the courage to enter the entertainment industry as an ingenue. I found it difficult to comment on her decision. Today, Robert also seemed peculiar, muttering about possibly fancying someone. Sipping my water, I eagerly anticipated seeing the usually stoic Robert finally opening up. "So who do you fancy?" "My brother," Robert replied nonchalantly. Janie and I both spat out our water in shock. "Does your brother fancy you back?" Janie asked, cutting to the chase. Robert immediately became defensive. "Does that matter? So what if he doesn't fancy me now? It doesn't mean he won't in the future. He'll come around eventually. Besides, I'm his only family in this world. He adores me, all right?" It wasn't quite the same kind of love, but Robert seemed content with his interpretation. Finally, the love-struck pair remembered the announcement I'd made a few days ago. Regarding the inheritance dispute, they were dismissive. "As if that hypocritical, illegitimate brother of yours could compete with you?" But when it came to stealing my sister-in-law, they were thrilled. They eagerly offered me all sorts of advice. However, looking at the challenging romantic journeys of the defensive brother and the secret admirer sister, I flashed a genuine smile and said, "Thanks, but I'll pass." In the afternoon, I took the first step in my inheritance battle by visiting the company. For years, the old man had been grooming Henry Johnson as the heir to the group. As for me, he placed no restrictions, encouraging me to be a wastrel, paving the way for his precious son. Everyone thought that after years of debauchery, I was just a useless playboy who only knew how to race cars. Little did they know, I had graduated top of my class from the University of Newcastle's business school. In fact, those close to me were well aware, but the family simply never cared about me. I made my way to the top floor unhindered, but as expected, I was stopped by Henry's assistant. "I'm sorry, Mr. Johnson is busy at the moment. You can't go in." The entire top floor was reserved for Henry's use, housing only the CEO's office and a dozen secretaries. The desk closest to Henry's office was empty, presumably Linda Rogers's. From behind the closed office door came the faint sound of a woman's sobs. "Don't, someone might hear." All the secretaries present seemed oblivious, focusing intently on their work. It was clear how many times such scenes must have occurred for people to become so accustomed. After another sharp cry from inside, I ignored the assistant and knocked on the door, shouting, "Linda, are you all right? Brother, I know Linda's a bit dim, but you can't hit her. Look how badly you've made her cry." After I spoke, the office fell into silence. If I wasn't mistaken, Henry must have been caught off guard. Seeing no response, I offered to call the police to resolve the situation, and the door finally opened. Linda came out with her head down, her face flushed and eyes moist. I enthusiastically offered help. "What did you do wrong for Henry to hit you? Don't be afraid, this is domestic violence. I'll report it to the police for you." Linda bit her lip, stammering, "Mr. J. Johnson didn't hit me." "Oh," I drawled, my face a picture of innocence. "Then what were you two doing in there?" Linda trembled, unable to speak. Some things become humiliating when spoken aloud. You have to fight fire with fire. Among the prim and proper secretaries, someone couldn't hold back a laugh. Soon, muffled laughter could be heard clearly. Linda's face and neck turned bright red as she ran out crying. As I entered the office, I caught a glimpse of the assistant's hopeful gaze and the appreciative looks on the secretaries' faces. I felt a pang of sympathy for how long they'd been tormented. Work was tedious enough without having to be unwilling participants in someone else's sordid games. As soon as I entered, I saw Henry Johnson with a dark face, looking thoroughly displeased. I struggled to hold back my laughter as I greeted him, not forgetting to tease him a bit. "Big bro, what were you up to just now?" Faced with my innocent and pure smile, Henry was fuming but couldn't express his anger. His temple throbbed with a pulsing vein, yet he was helpless. Rubbing his forehead, he asked, "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to take over the company, of course." Henry snorted as if he'd heard a joke, looking at me coldly. "You?" His gaze was filled with naked contempt. I casually picked up a report from his desk and started reading. "Yes, me." Henry didn't stop me. Instead, his mockery intensified. "Can you even understand that?" I glanced at it for a few moments, inwardly despising Henry's capabilities. Just a fool, he'll bring about his own downfall soon enough. At present, Johnson Group only appeared to be thriving on the surface, but it was rotten to the core. It wouldn't be long before the whole edifice came crashing down. Faced with his derision, I remained unfazed, only giving the assistant a few extra glances as I left. 3 days later at the auction, I had barely stepped inside when I ran into Henry and Linda Rogers, both of them in the middle of humiliating Christy Jenkins. Today, Linda was wearing an evening gown. As luck would have it, it was the same as Christy's. Whispers and murmurs filled the room, and the incident of Henry causing a scene at my birthday party to break off the engagement with Christy was brought up again. Christy had become the laughingstock of Newcastle in an instant. Linda smiled lightly as she addressed Christy. "What a coincidence. We're wearing gowns from the same collection. Though my dress was specially ordered by Henry for me, there's only one in the world," she said, her eyes scanning Christy up and down. "So yours must be." She left the sentence hanging, her implication crystal clear. To curry favor with Henry, several people took Linda's side. Has Christy resorted to wearing fakes after being jilted? How does she dare to show her face in public? You don't get it. Christy's busy trying to hook her next wealthy husband. Mocking laughter echoed around the room, and Christy's hands clenched tightly at her sides. Actually, it doesn't really matter what you wear. What's important is who you're wearing it for, Linda said, linking her arm with Henry's and feigning surprise. Christy, dear, you haven't come alone today, have you? Seeing Christy's face turn ashen, I quickly stepped forward and took her hand, giving it a reassuring squeeze. Sis, why didn't you wait for me before coming in? My use of the word sis was a constant reminder to everyone that Linda's self-proclaimed true love was nothing more than a homewrecker who had managed to climb to the top. Linda and Henry's faces instantly darkened. I looked at Linda's supposedly one-of-a-kind gown and clicked my tongue in mock amazement. So this is the world-exclusive gown, is it? If you hadn't said, I would have thought it was a £9.99 special from eBay. Linda's eyes bulged with rage. Actually, if a person is attractive, they look good in anything. Linda, you should cheer up. You've got Henry's brains and Henry's looks. I mimicked Linda's way of speaking. Even if you're not quite up to scratch, having Henry is enough. After all, you two are the epitome of true love, aren't you? My blatant sarcasm left Linda with nowhere to hide. She glanced at the graceful and elegant Christy, then at her own poor posture, suddenly feeling a lump in her throat. There were faint chuckles from the crowd around us. Henry gave Linda a sideways glance before leaving first. Linda glared at me resentfully, then picked up her skirts and scurried after him. Meanwhile, I strode confidently into the room with Christy on my arm, dressed in a sharp suit. Thank you, Christy said softly. I helped her with her dress with one hand. Do you really want to thank me? She nodded, tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Yes. As we turned a corner, I stopped, placing her hand on my chest to feel my rapidly beating heart. I'm serious, and I meant what I said that day. This pause was fleeting, and I took Christy's arm again as we entered the main room and took our seats. Throughout this time, Christy remained silent, but I understood. She had just come out of a failed relationship, and it was normal for her to be hesitant about entering a new one. We had a long future ahead of us. There was no need to rush. Today's auction was themed around jewelry, and everyone had come for the star piece, the heart of the ocean sapphire. When this treasure was unveiled, countless gasps of admiration filled the room. This item is provided by the Andrews family. The starting bid is £1 million, announced the auctioneer. Under the spotlight, every facet of the sapphire gleamed brilliantly, captivating all eyes in the room. All the women present found it difficult to look away, including Christy Jenkins. Linda Rogers clung to Henry Johnson's arm, cooing and fawning over him. Henry glanced at Christy and me before raising his bidding paddle. The bidding war began in earnest. In the end, only Henry and I were left, fiercely competing against each other. By now, the sapphire had reached a price of £50 million, far exceeding its actual value. Everyone in the room watched us like a spectator sport. At this point, it was no longer just about the sapphire. Given my earlier bold statements, this had become a public competition between Henry and me, as well as a matter of face for Christy and Linda. Everyone was eager to see who would win the sapphire and present it to their lady. Christy placed her hand on my arm, urging me not to be too impulsive. Linda gazed at Henry with starry eyes, praising how handsome he looked. The sparks of intense rivalry flew with each raise of the paddle. The bidding had now reached £100 million. I watched Henry hesitate and smirked to myself. The Johnson Group had recently acquired a plot of land, leaving them with only about £100 million in liquid assets. Henry was at his limit, but I, whom everyone had underestimated, continued to bid £100,001, just £1 more than him. Aaron, don't be rash. It's not worth it, Christy whispered, trying to dissuade me. I raised my glass towards Henry, my gaze mocking. Linda whispered something to Henry, her eyes red-rimmed. Henry, who had been hesitating, now looked determined and raised his paddle once more. This time I didn't counter. Sold for £110 million. Congratulations to Mr. Henry Johnson and Ms. Linda Rogers, the auctioneer announced. Amidst the applause, Linda held her head high, basking in everyone's envious stares. Henry's lips curled into a smirk as he looked at me triumphantly. What a shame! Aaron doesn't have the ability to win you this necklace, Linda gloated. But since Henry got it for me, I could lend it to you if you really like it. The room buzzed with whispers once again. Humph. I thought Aaron was something special, but he's no match for Henry after all. Just another spoilt rich kid talking big. Did you really think he'd inherit the family fortune? Poor Christy. First dumped by Henry and now stuck with this useless Aaron. Listening to the chatter around us, I smiled. From the beginning, I had no intention of winning the necklace. My goal was simply to drive up the price and cut off Henry's cash flow. Now, with all eyes on us, I pulled out a box from my pocket and handed it to Christy. This is for you. Christy, though confused, obediently opened it. Instantly, a dazzling blue sapphire was revealed to everyone, clearly larger and of higher quality than Linda's. Those who had been mocking Christy fell silent. They could only watch enviously as I fastened the jewelry around Christy's neck. Christy, with her fair skin and elegant demeanor, looked even more breathtaking with the sapphire adorning her. Under Linda's jealous glare, I spoke calmly. Do you like it? No need to borrow. Let Henry buy you another one. But how could Henry afford to buy another now? Henry seemed to finally realize he had been played. Faced with Linda's expectant look, he lashed out, blaming everything on her. In the end, Henry left with a grim expression, Linda trailing behind him in tears. Christy, meanwhile, stared at me in stunned silence. Meeting her emotion-filled eyes, I gently tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear and spoke with complete honesty. I won't let you lose. That day, Christy Jenkins practically fled in panic. Although she didn't reply, at least Christy's heart was in turmoil. Because of me. However, I had more important matters to attend to at the moment. Looking at the friend request from the assistant that popped up on my phone, I smiled faintly. Even birds know to choose the right tree to perch on. Today's auction made the assistant see clearly that Henry Johnson was brainless. This was just the beginning. I would make the people around Henry turn against him one by one. Robert Williams transferred all the money from Henry's jewelry auction to me, minus the taxes. This was the start of my short selling of Johnson Group. Burning the boats, breaking down before rebuilding. I was waiting for the old man to beg me to take over Johnson Group and inherit the family fortune. When the assistant messaged me to save Christy, I was discussing cooperation with Robert Williams. By the time I rushed to the scene, I saw Christy facing everything alone in the private room of the club. In the middle of the sofa, Henry and Linda Rogers sat down surrounded by a crowd. Originally, Christy was invited to attend the gathering, but she didn't know Henry would be there, walking into a trap. The people in the room tirelessly mocked Christy and flattered Linda Rogers. And Linda Rogers, because of the auction incident during the day, vented all her anger on Christy. They blocked the door, not letting Christy out. When I kicked open the door, a man reeking of heavy perfume was speaking in a sarcastic tone. Christy must be lucky, hooking up with Aaron before even breaking up with Henry. Who knows if they've been fooling around for a while. I am who I am, and Aaron is Aaron. You're not worthy of mentioning Aaron, Christy retorted, standing straight. This defense made me very pleased. I put my arm around Christy and kicked the man in the lower abdomen. He didn't expect it and fell to the ground. Henry spoke with a grim face. Aaron, you're too outrageous. Oh, really? What are you going to do? Kill me? Without waiting for Henry's reply, I started cursing everyone present one by one. Eric, wow. You got out of the police station so quickly? Your dad bailed you out after your hit and run. Want me to send you back in? Isn't this Alicia West? You used to send private photos to Henry to seduce him. How come you're kissing Linda Rogers' arse today? I questioned them one by one until I got to Ike Wright, the one reeking of perfume. The others are one thing, but you dare to criticize? Who doesn't know your dad was a social climber, serving rich ladies at White Horse Club in his early years? Are you following in your father's footsteps? Not scrubbing with steel wool but becoming a critic here, thanks to my reputation as an arrogant second-generation rich kid. I went straight for their weaknesses, leaving everyone speechless and hanging their heads in shame. Finally, facing Henry and Linda Rogers sitting there. As expected of a bastard and a mistress, you only know how to do these petty things when you get a little power. You'll never be respectable in this life. My words tore away all the facade of Henry and Linda Rogers. The most painful things were exposed raw and bloody. Satisfied, I left with Christy and sent her home. While driving, I called Janie Andrews and asked her to do something for me. I heard that the next day, all the employees of Ike Wright's company received a bouquet of steel wool flowers. The words about steel wool that day reached everyone's hearts. Ike Wright was beaten black and blue by his father and came to apologize to me, begging me to let him off. You shouldn't apologize to me, you should go apologize to Christy. On the way back to Christy's place last night, I told her my plan and confessed my feelings. This time, Christy bravely faced it. She rejected me, saying she couldn't accept a new relationship for now, and even left the necklace in the car when she got out. Little did I know that a few days later, Christy's father would approach me proposing an arranged marriage. In the private room, Mr. Jenkins smiled at me, his gaze approving. Recently, the Johnson Group's cash flow had been cut off, and their collaborations were failing frequently. Henry Johnson had been seeking help everywhere. Anyone with eyes could see this was all my doing. Christy Jenkins sat beside her father, her expression rigid. "I'm sorry, but I don't accept arranged marriages," I said. My answer caught both Christy and her father off guard. Mr. Jenkins' face darkened. "Why?" Christy looked at me curiously. She probably couldn't understand why I had confessed my feelings to her 3 days ago, yet now I was refusing. I quickly explained, "Mr. Jenkins, I like Christy truly. She shouldn't be an accessory in an arranged marriage. I'm refusing because I want Christy to genuinely fall for me. I want us to marry for love. Christy was never an accessory. She was the treasure I earnestly pursued, and she shouldn't come to me as if she were being handed over. I needed Christy to know how important she was to me, that she was the one I wanted to spend my life with, not just a marriage prospect." My words that day left Christy deep in thought. I understood her mindset. A girl who had just been hurt would naturally be wary of relationships. I couldn't take shortcuts. Instead, I needed to gradually ease her concerns and make her accept me completely, inside and out. That day, I left first, giving Christy time to think. Now, there were more pressing matters at hand. I heard that Zach Green, the CEO of Henry's rival company, had fallen for Linda Rogers and wanted to compete for her. This plot twist, reminiscent of a classic villain falling for the heroine in a romance novel, left me astounded. Nevertheless, I approached Mr. Green and proposed a collaboration. I used Mr. Green's desire for Linda to bring down Henry. At this point, Henry, facing both internal and external problems, was already overwhelmed and frequently lost his temper with Linda. Linda, fed up, broke up with him and fell into Mr. Green's arms. Henry became even more devastated, spending his days drowning his sorrows in alcohol. It seemed the Johnson Group couldn't be saved, and even the old man in the hospital struggled to turn things around. Henry had already embezzled from the Johnson Group for Linda's sake. Now, the Johnson Group was just an empty shell, but half of that company was the fruit of my mother's and grandfather's hard work. The old man finally came to me, hoping I would step in at this critical moment to save the Johnson Group. Looking at his gaunt face, a sense of satisfaction spread through my body. "Then you'll have to write down and sign over all your shares to me," I demanded. My coercion worked. Faced with the prospect of bankruptcy and losing everything, the old man signed the agreement in his own hand. After he finished writing, he suddenly looked much older. "Please spare Henry. He's suffered enough," he pleaded. The old man, who had always been stern and uncompromising, bowed his head to me for the first time, even begging me humbly. But it was for Henry's sake. Having obtained the Johnson Group and defeated Henry, I should have been happy, but an inexplicable sadness welled up inside me. Since my mother's passing, for 17 years, no one had ever considered my feelings. And now, the only person left in this world who shared my blood, my father, was pleading with me for someone else's sake. When I took over Johnson Group, Henry Johnson was still in his top-floor office, living in a drunken stupor. I had security drag him out. Looking at all the special assistants and secretaries following behind me, Henry finally realized everyone had turned against him. His eyes red, he cursed at me. "Aaron, you're playing dirty tricks on me. Just you wait." I couldn't be bothered to respond. I handed the design plans to my assistant and calmly instructed, "Demolish and renovate this entire floor." Having just taken over Johnson Group, there were too many deficits to make up. The inner workings of Johnson Group were more corrupt than I had imagined. It took considerable effort just to fire Henry's cronies. I even discovered Henry had been evading taxes. Late at night, I was reviewing reports in my office when I received a call from Christy Jenkins. Her voice trembled weakly over the phone. "Help! Help me! What are you doing?" Henry's voice came through clearly. I immediately had someone trace Christy's location and drove there. I discovered she was at a hotel. This hotel was a Williams Group property. Robert Williams was nearby and immediately sealed off the hotel to check the security footage after receiving my call. The footage showed someone had drugged Christy's drink. When she sensed something was wrong and tried to leave, Henry blocked her and half-carried, half-dragged her upstairs into a room. By the time I arrived, Robert had already apprehended Henry. He hadn't succeeded in his attempt. After entering the room, Christy had locked herself in the bathroom. But now Christy was disoriented and distraught, refusing to open the door for anyone. Passing by Henry, who had been subdued and forced to kneel on the ground, I gave him a vicious kick. "I had intended to let you off," I said, stepping hard on his shoulder, watching him writhe in pain as he knelt on all fours. I used my toe to lift his chin, meeting his venomous gaze. "Get ready for prison, my dear brother." Beside me, Robert thoughtfully held a bottle of pills. He kicked Henry. "Hey, are there any side effects to this drug?" Frightened from the beating, Henry knelt and wept. No, really there aren't any." Robert seemed to pocket the pills. But I couldn't worry about that now. I quickly walked to the bathroom door. On the other side, Christy's consciousness was hazy. I knocked gently on the door. A faint voice came from inside, tinged with pain and tears. "Go away, Christy. It's me. Don't be afraid, I'm here. I've come to save you. Be good, open the door. Let me take you to hospital. All right?" There was suddenly a long silence inside. Then finally the sound of water. With a click, Christy opened the door but collapsed from weakness. I quickly caught her in my arms, realizing she was soaked through. Her cold, wet clothes clung to her body, outlining her curves, but her whole body felt terribly hot. I grabbed a towel and held her tightly in my arms to comfort her. In the car, I held Christy as we rushed to the hospital. Christy squirmed in my arms, suddenly opening her eyes to look at me hazily. "Aaron?" I gave a low, Christy reached up to pull my neck down, kissing my lips. The passionate kiss deepened. "I feel awful." Christy looked at me pitifully, her eyes moist. Great, now I felt awful too. Finally, after the doctor hooked Christy up to N4, her furrowed brow relaxed and she fell into a deep sleep. I brought over a laptop and sat beside her, working while keeping her company. It wasn't until the next evening that Christy woke up. By the time I noticed she was awake, her face had turned bright red for some reason. I instinctively reached for her forehead. "What's wrong?" "Not feeling well." Christy blushed and dodged my hand. "I kissed you last night." Recalling the previous night, I nodded somewhat wistfully. "Yes." Christy fell silent again. Then after a long while spoke coyly. "Why didn't you let me take responsibility for my actions?" I quickly played along. Christy clung to my neck and gave me a light kiss on the cheek, then started crying again. I like you, Aaron. Yesterday when I was lying alone in the cold water in the bathroom, I realized you were all I could think about. I've always liked you. I just never dared admit it. Words weren't enough to express the depth of feeling. I wrapped my arm around Christy's waist, steadied her head, and kissed her deeply. Christy responded shyly and inexperienced. Everything was conveyed in that passionate, lingering kiss. Aaron and Christy got together after that day. Word had it that Zach Green was bewitched by Linda Rogers, infatuated to the point of death, yet suddenly came to his senses one day. He broke up with Linda Rogers. He even came to me to vent. I really can't understand how I could have been so madly in love with her, to the point where I would have given my life for her. I handed him a cup of tea. Perhaps you really were under a spell. After being abandoned, Linda Rogers went to find Henry Johnson, only to learn that he was in prison for tax evasion and attempted rape. She went to the Johnson group in hysterics. When the assistant brought her up, she questioned me emotionally. Why? Why didn't you like me? Aaron, you should have been the one who liked me the most out of the three. I straightened the photo of Christy and me on the desk. Because I'm not blind. Seeing the photo of Christy and me, Linda Rogers completely lost it, starting to scream and smash things. It's all Christy's fault. It's all her fault. I should have been the main character. Why did you fall in love with her? I keenly caught the words main character from her speech. It seems she knew all along that she was the protagonist of the novel. And because of my awakening, Christy changed from a vicious supporting character to my lover. Mr. Green was previously constrained by the plot setting, enchanted by Linda Rogers, but suddenly awakened. Predetermined fate with no one to reference, everyone lived out their own lives. To prevent the crazed Linda Rogers from harming Christy, I had her sent to a mental hospital under strict supervision. I heard that she causes a scene in the ward every day, shouting that she is the protagonist, the main character of the novel. But in everyone's world, only they themselves are the protagonist. After finishing everything, Stanley Johnson wanted to see me. He was already too ill to get out of bed, half lying there, cursing me with trembling hands for being cruel. You used my mother's family to expand the Johnson group, yet you cheated on her during her pregnancy? Aren't you cruel? You had an affair with Henry's mother, but were afraid of being found out, so you emotionally abused her, causing her to become unstable and die from massive bleeding during childbirth, leaving behind Henry. Aren't you cruel? You spoiled Henry. I'm your child too, but you never cared for me, even deliberately guiding me to indulge in pleasure-seeking, making me give up the family fortune to be a playboy. Aren't you cruel? Heartless and unjust. You're the cruelest of all, my dear father. Stanley gasped for breath, unable to speak. I rang the bell for the caregiver. You don't deserve to stay in such a good nursing home. I've arranged for you to be admitted to a care home on the outskirts of town. £500 a month. You beast. Stanley Johnson cursed me with all his might. You won't die anytime soon anyway. Go enjoy yourself there. You dare. Meeting his furious gaze, I smiled and took out the care home agreement. You forgot. Your beloved Henry is in prison, and I'm your only guardian in this world. This is the right you gave me by giving birth to me, bestowing upon me your bloodline. After taking care of everything, I proposed to Christy. She gladly accepted. It happened that Janie Andrews entered the entertainment industry and was viciously attacked online. As a wedding gift, I sent her a reality TV show. I hope she can move on from her unrequited love and bravely pursue her dreams. But I also advised her that if she's liked someone for 12 years and it still hasn't worked out, it's time to let go. As for Robert Williams, I heard that after he took that drug that day, he used it with his brother. Recently, he's been obsessed with finding deserted islands to imprison his brother. I introduced Christy to them, and we had dinner together. On the way home after dinner, Christy told me in shock that she saw Robert calling himself sister-in-law in front of the mirror. He even muttered to himself, wondering why he couldn't be his own sister-in-law. His love for Justin Williams has driven him mad. For this reason, I specially gave him an unnamed small island I had bought to assist in his forced love. At this moment, I handed the wedding invitation to my best friends. Just to be clear, if the dowry is less than £50,000, please sit at the dog table. The two friends who had suffered setbacks in love both gave me the middle finger, and I couldn't help but laugh. The world doesn't have any protagonists. Everyone is the master of their own fate.